3 inquiries, 3 narratives, absolutely 0 replies. Kennedy uttered this staring directly toward AOC. Her transmitter remained active, the emerald bulb shined, yet she remained completely mute. Here is how things unfolded. Dirksen 608, Senate Budget Committee. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had spent 45 minutes near the testimony desk. She had arrived willingly to deliver the financial argument regarding the Green New Deal. Without summons, she desired to appear here. This became her platform. For 45 minutes, she had been prevailing. She had informed them regarding pouring drinks within the Bronx. 24 months behind that counter hearing, everyday households discuss leases, utility costs, and the cost of medication. She stated she never moved to Washington due to concepts. She arrived due to those interactions. She had referenced the IMF. $7 trillion regarding fossil fuel handouts globally each annum. She gestured toward the display and deemed it mathematics. The funding is currently available. She claimed it merely required being reallocated. She had informed them regarding halting Amazon within Queens, confronting the wealthiest corporation globally, advertisements across Times Square criticizing her, executives labeling her gullible and becoming vindicated when Amazon grew across New York regardless, lacking business handouts. She utilized the term battle 11 times. The audience adored every instance. 2 Democratic lawmakers posed welcoming inquiries. AOC knocked both clear beyond the stadium. Near the opposite side of the platform, lawmaker John Kennedy from Louisiana had remained silent. He rested holding a blue ink pen alongside the reverse of his scheduling pamphlet, where he had scribbled 4 items using penmanship nobody could decipher. The head glanced toward his right. Lawmaker Kennedy, you possess 5 minutes. Kennedy stretched toward his transmitter. The snap when he switched it active felt crisp and pure. Within a space that had been hearing ovations for 45 minutes, it echoed like a latch securing. He did not hurry, he rarely hurried. He repositioned the transmitter base, drawing it nearer using 2 hands, the manner a person repositions a study light before starting a novel he has been anticipating since dawn. He placed his forearms upon the table. He stared toward AOC. She stared back carrying the easy calmness of somebody who had already triumphed and was merely waiting for the final procedures to conclude. He appeared elderly, he appeared sluggish, he hailed from Louisiana. He did not appear threatening. She felt unbothered. Appreciation, Mr. Head. Kennedy's tone remained leisurely, phrases that flowed the manner a stream flows. Representative, appreciation for appearing here today. You remained unforced to attend? You arrived willingly. I admire that. AOC bobbed once. Kennedy reached inside his coat pouch and retrieved out the session pamphlet. He opened it toward the reverse where his scribbles rested. He peered toward his personal penmanship like a person reviewing a bill he remains unsure he was billed accurately for. I shall not hold you extensively, merely a handful of basic inquiries. Down south within Louisiana, we possess a proverb. If you desire to comprehend an address, do not hear what individuals speak. Tally what they avoid saying. A handful of hushed grins appeared across the audience. AOC did not grin. She was observing him the manner a grandmaster observes a wrist reach toward a pawn it has not recognized yet. Kennedy stared toward his pamphlet. You referenced a figure that intrigued me. $7 trillion, fossil energy handouts. You stated it originated from the IMF. You labeled it mathematics. He stared upward. I enjoy mathematics. I reviewed that report also. He allowed the phrase to linger for 3 moments. The chamber anticipated. Basic inquiry, Representative. From that 7 trillion, what portion equals actual currency? What I mean through that entails, what portion equals literal federal expenditures, direct handouts, currency that flows outside of a federal treasury anywhere, funds that a state drafts a payment for? AOC tilted toward her transmitter, her tone appearing confident, rehearsed. Lawmaker. The IMF approach measures the complete burden which humanity carries due to fossil energy usage. That encompasses regional oxygen contamination, ecological harm, communal wellness expenses, transit externalities. These represent authentic burdens carried by authentic individuals. The $7 trillion sum illustrates what occurs whenever fossil energy corporations transfer their genuine burdens onto everybody else. Kennedy bobbed, the sluggish bob of a person who has caught precisely what he anticipated to catch. I comprehend all of this. Those represent authentic dilemmas. I remain not debating them. However, you failed to address what I requested. He reiterated the inquiry using the identical pitch, calm, nearly soft. What fraction of that 7 trillion equals literal federal expenditures? AOC hesitated for a single moment. She recognized the figure. She had reviewed this information for seasons. The direct financial handouts equal roughly $725 billion. Kennedy reiterated the figure sluggishly, cautiously, the manner an educator scribbles a solution across the blackboard so each pupil within the rear aisle can duplicate it down. 725 billion from 7 trillion. He allowed the ratio to hover within the atmosphere. That equals approximately 10%. He pivoted toward the audience. He did not elevate his pitch, he dropped it. 10 moments prior, the representative placed a figure upon that display. $7 trillion. She gestured toward it and stated the capital is currently present. She stated it merely requires being reallocated. She remained correct that it equals mathematics, and the mathematics states 90% from that figure equals not currency. Not currency within a vault, not line entries within a ledger. It equals an approximation. Analysts forecasting the burden of contamination and ecological harm and vehicle gridlock. Those forecasts quantify authentic dilemmas, yet you cannot carry a forecast toward a depository. You cannot draft a salary utilizing an approximation. You cannot finance multitudes of careers using a figure which lives upon a document, yet not within any ledger anywhere across the globe. He pivoted back toward AOC. You informed us you worked pouring drinks. I trust you. A drink pourer comprehends the distinction dividing the currency inside the till versus what the proprietor believes the tavern ought to have earned during a weekend evening. The currency remains actual. The forecast equals an assumption, a practical assumption, yet an assumption. You recognize that distinction while you remained behind that counter within the Bronx. I remain intrigued when you ceased recognizing it. AOC's chin stiffened. She started to converse regarding the wider financial structure and how externality burdens remain acknowledged by each significant monetary organization across the globe. Kennedy heard. He bobbed courteously. Once she concluded, he transitioned toward his subsequent inquiry, as though the counter-argument had acted as a sponsor pause separating the segments of the dialogue that counted. Subsequent inquiry. He stared toward his pamphlet. The Green New Deal. You unveiled it functioning as a measure within the chamber, February 2019. 7 seasons prior. He stared upward. Was that a statute or an unenforceable measure? AOC sat upright. It acts as a measure which creates a legislative structure regarding the most aggressive ecological and financial equality platform across national past. It has influenced each significant ecological treaty. Kennedy elevated a single digit. Unenforceable implies 0 department must execute it, 0 corporation must adhere, 0 region must obey it. Should the measure clear 2 houses tomorrow, 0 things would alter. 0 rules, 0 initiatives, 0 capital. It acts as a declaration regarding ideals, a recommendation. AOC's tone acquired a sharpness. It acts as a structure which resulted squarely toward the Inflation Reduction Act, the biggest ecological expenditure. Kennedy interjected softly. The manner a person states, "wait up," prior to delivering a thought he does not desire missed. The Inflation Reduction Act acts as lawmaker Manchin's legislation. I remain inquiring regarding yours. He hesitated. Over 7 seasons, has any legislation you individually authored turned into statute? Not a modification appended onto another person's document, not a structure another person transformed into rules. A legislation carrying your title upon it, which the leader approved? A single one regarding whatever topic. Environment, shelter, workforce, whatever thing whatsoever? The chamber adjusted. The inquiry had drifted broader than anybody anticipated. Not merely the Green New Deal. Any legislation, any topic. 7 seasons of labor. AOC stared toward her documents. She stared toward the cup of fluid she had avoided sipping. The labor of a lawmaker remains more complicated than one solitary standard. The modifications I cleared, the sessions I launched, the societal conversation I shifted. Kennedy bobbed his skull sluggishly, not disrespectfully, mournfully. I posed a highly basic inquiry, Representative. Has a legislation you authored turned into statute? Affirmative or negative? 5 moments ticked. The quietness carried heft. AOC failed to speak affirmative. She failed to speak negative. She spoke 0 things since the response equaled negative, and speaking it fully aloud within this chamber would grant Kennedy precisely whatever he desired. Yet avoiding saying it granted him something worse. It granted him the quietness. Kennedy pivoted toward the audience. His tone altered pitch, deeper, weightier. How many households inside the Bronx went to sleep yesterday evening continuously anticipating regarding those multitudes of careers? How many parents instructed their offspring, "Wait up! Circumstances are about to improve," since they watched a lawmaker across broadcasting vow that transformation was arriving? 7 seasons, those parents remained continuously instructing their offspring to wait up, and 0 things have arrived. If you have remained anticipating to follow because these inquiries shall not be posed across the channels that remained applauding 10 moments prior, AOC failed to anticipate regarding Inquiry 3. She rested 2 palms flush against the testimony desk and leaned onward. Her stance altered totally. She finished responding. She started striking. If lawmaker Kennedy desires to converse regarding governing backgrounds, her tone sounded regulated and piercing. Let us converse regarding his. She stared precisely toward him, not toward the platform, not toward the lens, toward him. The lawmaker hails from Louisiana. His territory possesses an 85-mile expanse alongside the Mississippi Stream, which the remainder of the nation labels Malignancy Avenue. 200 petrochemical factories, processing plants, chemical production locations stuffed so tightly alongside that you can spot the exhaust pipes from the primary academy vehicle spaces. The Human Rights Watch utilized 2 seasons probing it. They released a 98-page dossier. They labeled it, and I remain utilizing their phrasing, a fossil energy sacrificial area. She hesitated. The audience stayed hushed. 7 from the 10 demographic districts carrying the maximum malignancy threat within the whole United States exist inside your territory, lawmaker. Females inside those towns endure heightened frequencies of pregnancy loss. Offspring are hurried toward crisis units suffering respiratory episodes so critical, their guardians believe they are observing their offspring perish. Whole households, lineage following lineage, claimed through malignancy. And these represent largely minority towns. Households who have resided beside those factories for 10-year periods since they remain unable to afford to relocate. And 0 people holding authority have offered them a motivation to trust anybody minds. AOC tilted toward her transmitter. She articulated the subsequent phrase, staring precisely toward Kennedy. You have rested within that seat for past 10 seasons, lawmaker. What statute have you enacted to shield them? You rest up here carrying your blue ink pen and your pamphlet, probing me regarding references? Study the Human Rights Watch dossier regarding your personal territory before you arrive toward this session, and probe me regarding mine. The audience exploded. Individuals rose. Somebody within the rear aisle cheered over their skull. A lady approaching the front shouted, "Affirmative!" clearly enough so the transmitter could capture it. The head allowed the cheering to flow for 5 moments prior to striking the mallet downward twice. AOC trapped Kennedy's stare. She avoided blinking. This equaled the lady who battled Amazon, who challenged tycoons, who endured Times Square advertisements plus executive slurs and emerged the opposite end upright. This equaled her most powerful instant, and each individual inside Dirkson's 608 recognized it. Kennedy unsealed his lips. The head struck the mallet downward. Lawmaker Kennedy, your duration has concluded. Kennedy tilted toward his transmitter. Mr. Head, should I obtain 30 moments to counter? 5 moments, lawmaker. The guideline functions impartially. The crimson indicator upon Kennedy's transmitter turned black. His transmitter equaled lifeless. AOC's shoulders sank half a unit. Behind her, the assistant shut a computer and bobbed once. A tiny bob, the sort which indicates the difficult section equals finished. Upon the liberal portion of the platform, a lawmaker lifted his brew. Another tilted backwards and breathed out. Everybody inside Dirkson's 608 assumed it equaled finished. The elderly male from Louisiana had carried his blue ink pen, plus his session pamphlet, and Malignancy Avenue had submerged him. His transmitter equaled black, his duration equaled finished. The audience remained continuously humming. AOC stretched toward her fluid and eventually consumed a drink. Should you assume that equals the conclusion, you fail to comprehend John Kennedy. Avoid shutting this recording. It remains not finished. The head stared toward his registry. The subsequent identity upon the querying sequence tied to the elder conservative lawmaker resting precisely near Kennedy. A hushed male who had spoken zero things the whole forenoon and displayed zero indication of desiring to commence. The lawmaker tilted onward and switched active his transmitter. His tone sounded monotonous and formal. Mr. Head, I surrender my duration toward lawmaker Kennedy. The head stared toward his folder. The guideline remained explicit. It remained aloud. Lawmaker Kennedy? The head's tone sounded cautious. You possess an extra 5 moments. The emerald indicator upon Kennedy's transmitter switched active again. AOC placed her cup of fluid below. She pivoted toward her assistant for the initial instance during the whole session. The assistant failed to bob. The assistant failed to stretch toward the computer. The assistant merely stared toward her, holding a look which bore zero details, since there existed zero secure details to bear. Kennedy lifted up his pamphlet. He uncreased it. He failed to hurry. He rarely hurried. Prior to my continuation, his tone sounded hushed. The representative referenced Malignancy Avenue. She remains accurate. Malignancy Avenue remains actual. Citizens inside my territory remain impacted. I shall not rest here and fake differently. He allowed the phrases to land. The audience became hushed. They had anticipated a counterstrike. They had not anticipated consensus. However, I failed to arrive toward this session to converse regarding Louisiana. Representative, you did. You arrived here willingly to submit the financial argument regarding the Green New Deal. Therefore, allow me to pivot toward the topic you requested to converse. Kennedy placed the pamphlet below upon the table. He failed to stare toward it anymore. Last inquiry. You stopped an arrangement which would have delivered 25,000 careers toward Queens via Amazon, median wage exceeding $100,000 each annum. The rewards remained results-oriented. Should Amazon fail to generate the careers, they failed to obtain the levy advantage. You stopped that arrangement. You informed this panel today, and I remain reciting your phrases. We proved accurate. His tone decelerated. Each phrase landed individually, akin to strides upon a hushed stairwell. I remain not here to debate if Amazon equaled the proper arrangement or the incorrect arrangement. Logical individuals might clash over that. I remain inquiring something easier. He stared toward her. Following your stopping 25,000 careers, whatever did you swap them utilizing? The inquiry rested inside the chamber, akin to a pebble plunged inside calm fluid, rings extending out. Did you offer an alternative arrangement? An alternative hiring entity? A labor enhancement initiative targeting Queens? A career generation statute targeting the Bronx? One solitary item of statute which placed one solitary individual inside your territory to labor? Whatever. AOC talked. She talked regarding the economy adjusting privately, regarding Amazon coming back toward New York upon its personal conditions, employing 1,500 individuals, zero levy rewards mandated. She stated this demonstrated the framework functions minus business gifts. She stated she had battled regarding the ideal that taxpayer capital must never fund trillion-dollar conglomerates, and she had emerged justified. Kennedy paused until she equaled done. Afterward, he reiterated a solitary figure. 1,500. He allowed it to hover. From 25,000. He failed to compute the ratio audibly. He failed to require to. Each individual inside that audience could sense the gap separating those pair figures minus a computing device. 1,500 individuals acquired employment. 23,500 failed to. And 0 persons inside that session chamber, encompassing the lady who labeled it a triumph, could identify a solitary initiative which equaled built to swap whatever equaled removed. Kennedy's tone altered. The act equaled completely vanished. The rustic rhythm stayed, yet whatever resided beneath it presently equaled denser than acting. It equaled the tone of a male who had navigated past communities which zero address could mend, and recalled how they appeared during darkness. Once you assumed power during January 2019, the Bronx equaled previously the most destitute district inside New York metropolis. 7 seasons afterward, it remains consistently the most destitute district. Not the subsequent most destitute, not displaying progress, the most destitute. 7 straight seasons. Roughly 1 from 3 households beneath the hardship marker. Median domestic wage 43% lesser compared to the metropolis norm. The most destitute district inside the wealthiest metropolis inside the wealthiest nation across the timeline of the globe. And the lady who champions it has failed to enact a solitary statute during 7 seasons. He pivoted toward the audience. He equaled not conversing toward AOC anymore. He equaled conversing toward the individuals who might catch this subsequently. Solitary upon a display inside a space where 0 individuals equaled cheering. There exists an elder inside the Bronx this evening who remains preparing to rest near his dining counter following his female grandchild heading to sleep. Her parent labors the subsequent period near the clinic since a solitary paycheck fails to pay lease presently. It previously did, not presently. The elder assists the youth alongside her studies each dusk. He remains calm alongside her since somebody remained calm alongside him previously. An extended duration passed, inside the identical community back when it equaled an alternative spot. Kennedy allowed the picture to land. The audience remained motionless. The youthful liberal lawmaker across the center of the platform remained gazing toward his personal palms. That male recalls when that avenue possessed markets that remained unlocked beyond 9 when his peers possessed reliable employment near the plant inside Queens and arrived indoors near 5:30 and rested upon the steps and conversed regarding the baseball squad. When there existed a pastry shop near the edge which recognized his title and added a bonus pastry inside the sack since they recognized he parented 4 youths to nourish. When there existed a tool market plus a washing spot plus a footwear mending spot, when you failed to need to secure your entrance triple instances. Kennedy's tone sank. Not toward a breath, toward the pitch a male utilizes whenever he remains expressing somebody a reality he desires, equaled not real. That elder caught you vow multitudes of careers across broadcasting 7 seasons past. Each annum he anticipates regarding anything to shift across his avenue, for a corporation to relocate indoors, for a plant to commence, for a single of those multitudes of careers to manifest someplace his female grandchild might stroll toward. And each annum 0 things arrive. He hesitated. The chamber stayed motionless. He requires to comprehend a single item. He requires to comprehend his female grandchild remains preparing to mature upward inside a spot which remains superior compared to where she rests presently. Not the identical, not poorer. Superior. That equals not a massive demand, Representative. That equals the baseline. Kennedy stared toward AOC. His tone remained firm, leisurely, each phrase inside its precise spot. I posed you 3 inquiries today. He elevated a single digit. What portion of 7 trillion equals literal currency? You failed to offer me a figure. You offered me a narrative regarding externalities plus the burden humanity carries. He elevated a subsequent digit. Have you transformed the Green New Deal toward statute across 7 seasons? You failed to speak affirmative or negative. You offered me a narrative regarding conservative blockades plus the Inflation Reduction Act, which equals alternative person statute. He elevated a 3rd digit. Whatever did you swap 25,000 careers utilizing? You failed to identify a solitary initiative. You offered me a narrative regarding Amazon returning back upon its private terms. He dropped his palm. 3 inquiries. He stared toward her. 3 narratives. He hesitated. Exactly 0 replies. The audience failed to cheer. They failed to whisper. They failed to produce a noise. The quietness which permeated Dirkson's 608 equaled not the quietness dividing phrases. It equaled the quietness of a space which had newly observed something it had failed to observe previously, something which had existed there continuously. Each instance Kennedy requested regarding a figure, she had offered a narrative. Each instance he requested regarding a consequence, she had offered an excuse. And the citizens inside her region who required something literal, something they might bank or punch inside toward or navigate toward, remained continuously anticipating, since narratives fail to fund lease. Kennedy stared toward AOC. His visage bore 0 fury, 0 victory, 0 contentment. Should anything, it bore the heft of a male who had posed an inquiry he previously comprehended the solution regarding, and desired he had proved incorrect. 7 seasons, 0 solitary statutes. Whatever do you possess? The session space turned hushed. Not the quietness which drops dividing talkers, the quietness which permeates a space whenever something possesses been spoken, which remains unable to be reversed and remains unable to be countered. The head paused 3 moments. 4. Afterward he conversed softly. The manner a male converses whenever he comprehends the solution shall prove tough regardless of whatever it equals. Representative, do you desire to counter? AOC's transmitter equaled active. The emerald indicator shined near the bottom of the transmitter base. The broadcasting lens upon the port equaled focused upon her visage. The lens upon the starboard maintained Kennedy within silhouette. Someplace inside a management room, an operator equaled anticipating to observe whatever broadcast to maintain upon. Her assistant pushed a sheet of document over the testimony desk. The document produced a gentle noise touching the timber. Inside the quietness of that space, it equaled the noisiest item anybody had caught during 30 moments. AOC stared downward toward the document. Her optics shifted over it. She stared toward the transmitter. She stared toward the emerald indicator. She stared toward the audience, where a lady who had risen and cheered 20 moments prior presently rested holding her palms inside her fold. She stared toward the platform where the youthful liberal lawmaker equaled continuously gazing toward his personal palms. She failed to talk. Not since her transmitter equaled inactive. Not since her duration had concluded. Not since the head had forced her mute. The transmitter equaled active. The emerald indicator equaled noticeable toward each individual inside Dirkson's 608, plus each individual viewing via broadcasting from their family space or their dining area or their clinic rest space. The head had asked her to counter. The chamber equaled anticipating. And the lady who stated she battled upward against Amazon whenever the entire system attempted to destroy her, who stated she challenged tycoons and triumphed, who stated she dreaded 0 persons, that lady rested near front of an active transmitter inside an American legislative session chamber alongside the emerald indicator shining and the lenses recording and the whole nation observing, and decided not to utilize it. AOC positioned her palm upon the sheet of document her assistant had offered her. Sluggishly, she flipped it reversed, front downwards touching the desk. She failed to review it. Whatever equaled drafted upon that document equaled unable to reverse the preceding 3 moments. She comprehended it. Her assistant comprehended it. The youthful lawmaker gazing toward his palms comprehended it. The head paused double extra moments. Afterward, he stretched toward his mallet. Appreciation, Representative. Appreciation, Lawmaker Kennedy. The panel shall rest inside break. The mallet descended once. The noise echoed over the stone barriers of Dirkson's 608 and vanished toward the sort of quietness which tracks an entrance shutting for the concluding instance. 3 inquiries, 0 replies. Should those inquiries warrant to be caught clearer, circulate this recording. Journalists captured AOC inside the corridor beyond the session space. Lenses followed her. Transmitters manifested near front of her visage. A solitary journalist inquired regarding the session pamphlet Kennedy had remained scribbling upon. AOC adjusted her purse upon her arm. That equaled performance, she stated, minus stopping pace. He arrived holding a screenplay. A subsequent journalist walked near front of her. The lens rearward him possessed a crimson indicator active. Representative, wherefore did you fail to counter toward his last inquiry? AOC stared toward the journalist. She stared toward her assistant strolling near her. She stared toward the lens. She continued strolling. 0 reply. The lens tracked her for half dozen extra paces prior to an alternative journalist obstructed her route holding a distinct inquiry. She similarly failed to reply. That equaled the subsequent instance inside one period she decided quietness whenever she might have talked. The primary instance, a space packed with lawmakers observed. The subsequent instance, the corridor lenses recorded. The viewers might observe both. Her personnel issued a message that midday. It labeled Kennedy's probing a partisan trick structured to deflect from the ecological emergency. It referenced the IMF report. It referenced the Inflation Reduction Statute. It failed to reference the 3 inquiries. It failed to reference the 10%. It failed to reference the 7 seasons. That dusk, a 30-moment snippet moved over the web. Kennedy probing. AOC hushed. The emerald indicator upon her transmitter noticeable near the base of the picture. It equaled circulated past 2 million instances prior to midnight. Her 45-moment display, the version the audience had risen and cheered. The version holding the IMF figures plus the drink pourer narrative plus the Amazon triumph plus the term battle utilized 11 instances equaled not circulated whatsoever. 0 persons circulate the address. They circulate the quietness. Inside the Bronx, an elder rested near a dining counter. His female grandchild had headed to slumber a period past. Her studies equaled continuously exposed upon the counter beside a cup of dairy she had failed to complete. A numeric document, summing and deducting, basic queries holding direct solutions. The sort of queries where you might review your labor and comprehend if you remain correct. He observed the snippet upon his mobile. 30 moments. An elderly male from a territory he had 0 instances toured, posing an inquiry he had desired to pose for 7 seasons. He failed to comprehend whatever malignancy avenue equaled. He failed to comprehend the gap dividing direct and indirect handouts. He failed to mind regarding the formal guidelines of the Legislative Finance Panel, or whoever surrendered duration toward whoever or whatever the IMF released preceding annum. However, he comprehended whatever 7 seasons of anticipating appeared similar to. He equaled resting inside it, near the identical counter inside the identical dwelling inside the identical community, which previously possessed a pastry shop near the edge. He had viewed the addresses across broadcasting. He had caught the vows. Multitudes of careers, a fresh system, transformation equaled arriving. And each annum he anticipated regarding anything upon his avenue to shift, for an assistant's desired board to manifest inside a pane, for a market to commence alternatively of shutting, for his female child to arrive indoors at a logical period, alternatively of laboring twin rounds near the clinic since a solitary period failed to fund lease presently. He transmitted the snippet toward his female child. She equaled upon her pause. He entered a solitary phrase beneath it. Somebody ultimately inquired. A combined journalism journalist located Kennedy inside the corridor following the session. She inquired whatever he had drafted upon the reverse of the session pamphlet. Kennedy grinned, the sluggish, exhausted grin of a male who had completed whatever he arrived to complete and desired to head indoors. He stretched inside his coat and retrieved out the creased pamphlet. He offered it toward her, minus formality. Upon the reverse, using blue ink pen, 7T ringed alongside double phrases beside it using tiny script, not actual. Beneath that, scored once, 0 statutes. Beneath that, 25K tracked via a pointer directing toward an inquiry symbol, 4 scribbles. 0 pre-written address, 0 folder of adversary data, 0 personnel drafted conversing topics, holding marked segments plus brightened phrases, 0 diagrams, 0 plots, 0 professional breakdown. Primary Academy Mathematics drafted using ink pen upon the reverse of a complimentary session pamphlet. Occasionally that remains sufficient. Should you trust Primary Academy Mathematics consistently counts greater compared to fine addresses, this network remains regarding you. Follow, strike the chime, head back. There shall remain extra basic inquiries.